At $200, a Super Nintendo setup costs twice as much as the old system. For the money, the company promises better pictures, sound, and adventure. Now you're playing with power, superpower. You're the king, I tell you! The king!
Only for Super NES.
Only on Super NES.
You're listening to the SNES Podcast with your host, Soulblazer.
Hello, everybody. This is Super NES Podcast, episode number 250. This is the big 250, and as promised, we're bringing you a special episode for one of our milestone recording dates. A much delayed episode. Sorry about that. I will talk about that here in a moment. But this is Greg, as always, joined by my faithful co-host Joe.
Hello.
And the original idea for this was mine. Joe was very kind enough to go along with it, so thank you again for that.
No problem.
Basically, the idea came about because of the fact that, as I'm sure most people know, the Super NES has a vast library. I don't remember the actual U.S. release count of games off the top of my head, but it's high. But even counting games that are unique to the system, i.e. was imported anywhere else, there's still a lot of games to cover. And it's like, it occurred to me, it's like, there's so many games on here. It's like, there definitely are some stinkers. There definitely are some very bad games on the podcast. We've covered some bad games on the podcast before, but my original idea was like, let's take a bunch of games that don't really have any meat to them, i.e. really wouldn't have enough warrant going on with them to justify a full episode, and let's just like bundle them all together like the one dumpster fire episode, like bang a whole bunch of them out at once, and then you hear us rant about them for a few minutes and never hear about them again probably. So in that way, Joe came up with a list. I think you got that list originally, Joe, if I remember correctly, like the Super NES book.
So it was a combination of Pat Conti's SNES guidebook with his star rating, as well as average ratings via the internet.
Okay.
Basically, everything I chose was basically rated 2 stars or below, and I cherry picked. I didn't, because it would have been an extensive list. By the way,
of course,
the answer you were looking for is 722 official release games in North America. So
it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. And the amount of 2 stars is quite a bit. If I had limited to maybe 1 star or half a star, maybe I would have got a much smaller pool to choose from. But
sure,
either way,
that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, I basically, looked over real quick, randomly picked some games and said, let's do it. And, this list has evolved because there are some games that I end up picking that we've decided, okay, you know what? There's actually something there. We can do a separate episode for that. So, our list went from, I think, 16 or 17 to start off with to where now it's like, what?
12.
13? If that, so.
12 games. I won't say the games quite yet to save them the surprise, but if this goes well, as Joe just said, there definitely are enough bad games. We definitely could revisit the concept in the future for sure. But but anyway, so because this is more of a condensed episode, I did not do deep research about these games. I did a little bit, so I can talk about the games a little bit in general, but it's like, don't expect a deep dive on these games. Don't expect eBay prices. We're just going to talk about the games in general and basically just try to find out, do these games live up to the reputation that the internet says they do, or are they actually not that bad? Because it's like, if people long listeners of the podcast will know that, we cover some games that are notorious for being bad that really have not been all that horrible that we actually get down and sit down and play it. As a matter of fact, one game on this list I actually enjoyed quite a lot that I would have been happy to do a regular episode, like a regular episode on. So
yeah, and we also vary on our opinions on games as well. So
Yes.
just because you find something that's not great, I might end up liking it. So
Yes.
and vice
So-
versa.
But anyway, yeah. So and also, like Joe said, there are some other games that we decided to take out and cover later on in a regular episode. For example, just to give you guys a sneak peek, there are 4 edutainment games that were created specifically designed to help children with like to learn about and educate them like about certain afflictions like asthma and diabetes and whatever.
Yeah.
And so like. The games themselves may not be great, but the actual idea and concept of those, as well as the development, is very interesting. So I think that so we're going to cover all 4 of those games in a single episode because I think it's more interesting, and that those games deserve to have proper coverage of them, and not be delegated to the dumpster fire that these games are.
Right.
So anyway. This episode was supposed to be out a while ago, but apologies about the month-long delay. Without going into too many details, there were some personal issues going on in my life. My parents have not been the best health, and I've had to be with them for a while to help out. Things are better now. They're still rough, but at least that. Because I was not in a stable environment and didn't have any privacy, I couldn't record. So now, but now finally things have improved to the point where I'm back in my apartment and I am able to record. And knock on wood, and nothing else happening. We should be able to present regular episodes for folks on a regular 2-week basis that we had been doing for quite a while now. And Joe also very generously banged down an episode. During my absence to help give you guys something to listen to. You were the guest host of that episode, Joe, right? I'm trying to remember who that was.
Yeah, so the original special episode, which I don't remember why we did it, but I ended up pulling George back in to record a God, I cannot think of the name of the game right now, but it was a Japanese game. It's the one that
it's part of the River City
series
Ransom franchise. Yes,
it's that franchise. Anyways, yeah, and then of course, this time around, I was gonna, I called on my son, and was like, hey, let's just chit chat for like 20 minutes, Japanese game, easy, and he was honest with me. He was like, yeah, I'm just not something that I'm passionate about, and I think you can get someone better. And I was like, okay. And then my friend Devin stepped up, and, Devin and I, been friends for quite a while. I think I discussed that on the special episode. But, yeah, I mean, he stepped up and was more than willing to do it. So, and I gave him an open invitation to join us on a future episode because I think he's got some great insight.
Right. Okay. Yep. Definitely. Yeah, sounds good. So yeah. So many thanks to you guys for doing that episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
What that game is, off the top of my head, I don't remember because I'm still kind of. But I do appreciate you guys doing that.
Yeah.
So, anyway, you will. Oh, sorry. 1 second. That's gonna bug me now. It's like, I should give you guys like a proper shout out. The game is a. The Japanese is it's rough. It's basically a beat 'em up, based on popular anime, very Sailor Moonish, in some ways. So anyway, before we get going here, I do want to say one thing about these games that you'll probably notice. A lot of these games, as George said, Super NES was a large system, popular system, a lot of games made for it. There's a lot of shovelware. Basically, I don't think the ratio of bad games to good games on the system is any worse than most other systems, honestly. And there are some systems I think which have a much worse ratio of bad games to good games. The Jaguar comes to mind, for example, but. But a lot of the bad games in the system are bad games, not because the developers didn't care. Oftentimes the developers did try. Oftentimes bad games are what I'd call licensed property games. Basically, it's where a producer had a book, a movie, a TV show, whatever, wanted to make a game out of it for whatever reason, hired a company to develop the game, gave them like a crap budget, no time, very little help. You know this. Like, knew the song and dance routine, like, for this. And basically, developers did the best job they could with the time constraints resources that they had to work with, because at the end of the day, they don't care. Like, they're getting paid. I mean, like,
right.
Well, of course they care. They don't want to nobody wants to make a bad game on purpose. But, it's just that a lot of the bad games are bad games just because that because the constraints that were forced upon them by somebody else. And, like, most of the games in our list here are licensed property games. So once again, that old chestnut is proven true here. So, I think off the top of my head, there's probably maybe only like 3 games on here that are not licensed property games. So
I was going to say it's about half. So half of our games are licensed properties. The others are just games that were rated bad, because I don't want to spoil anything.
Yes. And then and then also and then you also have cases of ports of games, which always which again, if anybody who's listened to this podcast for a while knows, ports of games that were created for the systems ported on the Super NES later on are not always the best in the world for one reason or another. That's a good segue to our first game on our list here, a puzzle game called Breakthrough, which originally came out for Windows and DOS for DOS 1994, and it was ported to other systems, including Super NES later on. So, despite the fact that the company and the box plugged the creator Tetris as being involved in this, he actually wasn't. I mean, right there, it was just a marketing gimmick, and right there, that's a bad start.
Yeah.
When a company feels like they have to rope in somebody from Tetris to plug your own bad puzzle game. And yeah, this is not a great puzzle game. The main problem with this game for me was the graphics. They're not the graphics. And again, I'm saying this is probably a result of the port, because I think the graphics look better in the original Windows versus DOS version. I looked at those briefly on YouTube. On the Super NES, for whatever reason, the graphics are really eye straining, they make the game hard to play. So, they're tiny, they're hard to see. There's special bricks and bombs all over the place that are hard to identify. They were trying to reinvent the puzzle formula without really doing but it just didn't land for me. There wasn't. It's like I'd rather be playing Tetris or Columns or any of what's that SNK series?
Puyo Puyo?
Puyo Puyo also is another good one. Capcom had a series of puzzle games too, which is also very good. All those games are much better than this one is. It's not horrible. It's a very average puzzle game, not helping the graphics.
Yeah, so a little context here. I saw Breakthrough and immediately thought that this was going to be like an Alleyway clone.
Okay, yeah.
So I was like, okay, this could be one of those, it's bad, but it could actually be good. It's a simple puzzle game where you play to eliminate lines of 3 blocks or more. Your goal is to eliminate all the blocks. Good luck with that. And as I put in my notes, it's reverse Tetris. It's very simple yet challenging concept. Honestly, the biggest issue I had with this game was the controls and the timer. A more modern version of this game exists by PopCap called Pop It, and you pop balloons.
I did not know that. Okay.
There's no timer in that game. It's all done by moves. You keep going until you run out of moves. And obviously being able to touch the things to eliminate them makes the game a lot easier.
Yes.
This game also gives you the ability to shift your stacks left or right, which honestly in my gameplay I didn't use, but I did watch a little clip on YouTube, and apparently that does help as far as strategy goes. I don't know. I'm kind of on the opposite with Greg here. I think the music here was fine. I think the graphics were okay. I see why this game gets the hate that it does, but honestly, going back to it's like Pop It, and I actually enjoy Pop It. I could play this probably for a couple hours and not really get tired of it. But yeah, that timer and then the frustration of, the blocks continually to drop. So that's another reason why you shift your stacks, is so that your stacks don't get too high and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, it's a puzzle game. I don't think it was well executed here. I don't think it's horrible. I definitely think it's playable.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was, I forgot to note exactly what the ratings were when I saw them and whatnot. And I should have done that. But
bad to average ratings, like 2 stars.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think
yeah.
I remember this one at least having the 2-star rating.
Yeah.
So, it's one of those, like, if you like puzzle games, you could probably get through this no issue. If you don't like puzzle games, then you already know not to touch this.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, fundamentally the game plays. It's not like it's broken or anything. It's just like, just not a very inspired puzzle game. It looks better in its original PC format.
Yeah.
Than any of the ports. But anyway, yeah. So, if you love obscure puzzle games, maybe check this out. Otherwise, there's much better puzzle games out there. So,
yeah.
So I'm ready to move on. How about you?
Yep.
Next game on our list, because this is next. Simply going by alphabetical order, is Baby's Kids. The first of the licensed property games that we said that we were going to talk about. This was a adult animated comedy movie originally in 1992. I never saw this. I never saw this movie. Joe, did you?
Yeah, I did.
Oh boy,
it's one of the reasons I chose the game, because the movie wasn't as good as most people remember it, and the game is very much in the same vein.
Well, the movie bombed in the box office. So it's
it did.
So a lot of people do not think very highly of this movie either. So, which is why I decided to make a game. The game based on the movie 2 years later is beyond me.
Right.
Because it's like now you can occasionally have a bad movie become a good game. We've seen it before, but if nobody really cares about the original source material, it doesn't really help very much as far as the games go. So it's like, and it's like this is definitely because the developers, Radical Entertainment, were not slobs. They were pretty, they were pretty decent company developing games. But it's like, again, it's the same. This is why I preface the start of the episode saying, like, they did the best they could with what they had to work with, because the video game loosely follows upon the movie. It's your typical licensed platformer, movie property slop. The graphics and music in this game are actually pretty good, I thought, overall. I mean, it's like visually and sound wise, it's not bad. It's not bad. I thought those were the high points of the game, but where do we even start with the problems? It's like, very slow action, enemies take huge amount of damage, so it feels like the battle seems endless. Hitbox detection control is not great. Poor play controls. In fact, back in 1997, the Nintendo Power ranked as the worst. Ranked as worst as the worst video game on the system. So, and they're not the only ones in saying that. So, yeesh, it's pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, you get your choice of a boy or girl character, which honestly does not matter at all. They play the same. You walk through Fun World, which is the amusement park that these kids basically cause chaos in the movie. And it's just, man, it's a poor beat 'em up, is what it boils down to. Enemies are sponges. You can wail on them. And it takes up to 13, 14 hits before one of them will die. Unless you get a weapon, then it takes 3 hits, which is still too much for a beat-em-up game like this that moves so slow.
Yeah.
The other thing is there's a time limit that you're obviously working against. So if you are trying to use your fists and kicks or whatever, and it takes 13 hits to take down the enemy, guess what's going to happen first before anything else? You're going to run out of time. And honestly, good luck seeing anything past the first level. That being said, I agree. Graphics are actually really nice. I like the large sprites. But honestly, that is the only positive here. Hit detection is all over the place. I think that's one of the reasons why it takes 13 hits to take out the enemy, because I think half of those hits aren't even landing. And yeah, I mean, if you end up somehow getting past the first level, it's going to be more the same. And good luck just progressing in this game in general. This is absolutely, of the two games that we've already talked about, this one actually lives up to the reputation and in some cases actually exceeds it. Yeah, it's not good. I mean, more people should know who Robin Harris is because he was a great comedian, but compared to like Eddie Murphy and like Richard Pryor and other comedians of the time, Andrew Dice Clay, like no one remembers Robin Harrison, which is sad. And he died young in 1990 of a heart attack. So like Baby of Kids was kind of like a way to immortalize his legacy, which is, one of his big comedy routines was talking about taking the kids to Disneyland and them basically running amok, which is what Baby's Kids movie was supposed to be about. Poor execution all around. It's unfortunate. And like I said, nobody knows who Robin Harris is today, which is sad. But here we are. It's all good.
Yeah. All right. So, this definitely, I agree, dude. There's definitely lives up to reputation. This is reputation of the video game. And actually worse than the movie it was based upon. But, definitely one of the best. Definitely one of the worst video games. Like on the system. If we were to have taken another game off this list to devote to a full episode, I probably would have picked this game next. Balls. How it's spelled depends upon where in the world you're playing it at, because the game on other systems, because it also came out for the Sega Genesis and 3DO, is spelled BALOS, but because of the double entry that balls can be, Nintendo set upon the name being changed to Super NES version, so to the versions on that system, it's spelled BALZ. Yeah. So depending upon what version of the game you have or where in the world you live, that's what the game is. So this is a very interesting 2.5D action fighting game that came out in 1994, where they're using like the gimmick is the characters are all composed of spears. Giving the game a kind of a pseudo 3D look. And the developer said they did it this way because they're trying to harness the power of the systems, the Genesis and the Super NES to their fullest extent. And then they're like, we can get better frame rate resolution if we do spears as opposed to doing sprites. Which for the time period, they're probably right about that count. But so the result is you have graphically because that I think the game looks pretty good, but. Actually, this is probably like one of the best rated games on this list of games I'm covering today. At least the Genesis version scored higher than the Super NES version did. The Super NES version still did not get horrible ratings. Those are still, those are still like in like the 5 and 6 out of 10 range for this game. It's like. the main problem with this game is just like the gimmick about the graphics isn't strong enough. Isn't strong enough to make up for some very lackluster gameplay. It's like you've seen all this stuff in other fighting games done much better, unfortunately. So it's like that's the main problem with this game, I think, and why it's so like cookie cutter, like forgettable, average game. Not deserving, I think, being a worst game in the system. I think I honestly think 2 out of 5 stars is a little bit too hard for this game. I'd probably give it like 3 out of 5 stars myself, but it's not great though by any means either. The game didn't sell very well either. As a side note, the developer recycles some of the costs that they spent on this technology by using it turn around to make a line of virtual pet titles, pets, PETZ, using the same graphic technology, which sold much better than this video game did.
Yeah. Well, to start off with, the opening for this game, get ready to hear things that I cannot talk about on this family-friendly podcast. Yeah, this is the kind of thing where your mom comes in, yells at you to shut the game off, and then she'll embarrassingly turn around and leave, knowing that she bought you that game in the first place. Yeah, there are some moans and groans that again I will not describe here. That start this game off. So wow, what an opening! That being said, you get 8 fighters that are made of balls. Go figure. Music is thankfully different while you're fighting in the game, so you only have to deal with that opening part that's really shady. I think they do a pretty good job making this feel kind of 3D-ish. And it but the thing is that in doing that, it feels like really vast and empty. I think that adding some stuff in like the background and whatever else to kind of fill it out, the arenas, I think would have done a lot more for this game. The other thing is learn how to do your moves. Learn how to do special moves because the CPU doesn't care what your level is. I played on easy, and right out the gate, the CPU was doing special moves and whooping my butt, and I had a hard time getting even close to the enemy to even land a punch. So, word to the wise if you're going to check this out. Overall, it's a mediocre fighting game. I thought the mechanics were okay. The mediocre graphics, as I said, like it's just vast and empty. They really put everything into the character models, which again are little spheres. So it's like, like is it really that impressive? I guess running on the Super Nintendo and the other ports with the Sega Genesis, yes, but I don't know. Looking at it today, I can see why some people look at this negatively, especially with that gameplay mechanic.
The sexual innuendos also do not help one bit either. It's like
right.
It's like they were edgy for the time, but now you're like, what the hell are you guys doing? But it just wasn't needed at all. So
yeah, and I'm sure this game got some kids in trouble back in the day, and it made some grandmas and parents feel very embarrassed that they had bought this game.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. So, this game actually sells for a little bit higher than average price on eBay. Maybe because the fact that it's kind of, it's kind of like a novelty game. But yeah. So it's like, we played worse fighting games for sure, but it's like the graphics, the graphics themselves, while cool at the time period, don't really do enough to justify playing this game nowadays. I think it's just like there's so many other. It just you're just very like forgettable meh fighting game, unfortunately. Yeah. So,
yep.
But anyway, moving on from that, we have our next like licensed property video game, which this time did not take as long to come out. Because it was developed. The game was developed at the same time as the movie was, like it came out like pretty short to one another. The video game based off the originally box office bomb, but now kind of like a cult favorite. Cool World, which I don't see that. Yeah, I've not seen this movie for a good 20 years, but I remember liking it. I understand. I understand why the movie bombed at the box office when it came out originally. It has problems, of course. It's nowhere near as good as like Who Framed Roger Rabbit and things like that. But yeah, it's like I remember having some fun with it. The movie itself I think is like okay, so I definitely understand. I understand them wanting to make a video game based off of it. Was it the best idea in the world? No, but because I said before, games based on licensed properties usually don't do that well. But I understand, however, the fact they wanted to make a video game on it, and they thought that the movie was going to be a bigger success than it was. Have you seen this movie yourself, Joe?
Oh yeah, I love this movie. That's one of the reasons I made sure it was on this list.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, I understand. Yeah, this is definitely a movie that definitely has gained a reputation and following over the years. But because you probably know this movie had a very tumultuous and troubled development cycle.
Oh yeah.
So the fact it actually came out half decent is kind of a shock, like in of itself. But anyway, so. Ocean publishes this game, which is like you're already right there. That's not a good, not a good sign.
I was going to say you said enough.
Right. The Super NES version of this game, however, does play differently. However, compared to its compared to computer Game Boy and NES versions of the game. This version of the game is more an adventure game for style as opposed to like a platformer like the other ones are. This is also the only version of the game that allows you to actually play as like Jack Deebs, one of the main characters like in the movie. So this is because this version of the game was developed by the same company, but they wanted to kind of take more advantage of the power the Super NES had to offer compared to the other systems that the game that came out for. So, mostly follows the plot of mostly follows the plot of the movie. It is still it is still very action platforming in many sense. But there are like adventure game aspects too, where you have to find certain objects and objects used in the correct locations. It really kind of reminds me of a lot like of again Who Framed Roger Rabbit. If you played the NES game, Joe,
yeah,
the gameplay for that is somewhat similar. I thought at least to this game. So, this is another. The ratings of this game were not horrible. They were just like in the fair to average category, like 2 stars, 3 stars, whatever. I'd probably say 2 stars. Like this game is fine. Graphically the game looks nice. But the controls are not great. Again, I had problems with hit detection. At least it's very abstract. Trying to figure out what to do can be very difficult unless you do a lot of trial and error or have a lot of patience or look up a guide or whatever. So it's just not super exciting enough. It's just like there's rather. The whole time I was playing the game, I was like, okay, this is fine. There's like 10 other games I could be doing right now that are far better than this game is.
Right.
But anyway, just like it's again just another cookie cutter. I'm sure the developers were shoveled into the project with little money, fast development cycle, again, and in certain nauseum the reasons why these games often are bad. So, just like. If you want to play this game, by all means, it's not horrible. Like I said before, I think the game does look. Like I said before, I think the game does look nice and it sounds pretty funny too. I think, but especially if you're a fan of the movie, I think it's worth checking out. Just do yourself a favor: have a guide on hand with you when you play this game, because you save yourself a ton of frustration and time with this.
Yeah. So my notes start off with just start the game, because they give you an option to look at the options or start the game. The options literally just give you the option of either stereo, mono, or off. like why did you even put that there? It should have just been like one of those things where like you could toggle left and right to switch from mono to stereo. That was the first thing that got me, and I just kind of laughed and I was like, okay. So hopefully you've seen the movie of Cool World when you play this game, but more than likely you haven't, because it's PG-13, and why do they make movies on adult properties? I don't know. That's something that still baffles me to this day. So you probably have no idea that you're playing as Jack Deebs, the cartoonist who created Cool World and was brought to that world by Hollywood, with her ambitions to do things I can't talk about here on this family-friendly podcast in an effort to become human and live in the real world. So that's your setup. You're dropped in the Cool World, and I walked to the right, and immediately little blue cops smothered me, and I died. I respawned. The little blue cops are still there. They smothered me, and I died. I finally held left while I was spawning in and was able to move left, and then I was killed by a bunch of kids after I answered some questions about whether I had a nickel or not, and I died. This is pretty much the game loop that you're going to run into unless you have a guide like Greg was saying, which for me is unfortunate because the levels are beautiful. I think they did a great job with the backgrounds. It definitely captures the vibe of what Cool World is. Like, you're literally playing in the world that Jack Deebs created, which is amazing. And like, it's, I don't know, this soured me real quick, to the point where, after the blue cop thing kept smothering me and then just respawning me in the same area to go through that whole thing again, and then coming across the kids, obviously not having a nickel, because I haven't been able to explore anywhere to get a nickel, and then them basically attacking me, which, to be fair, is faithful to the movie, so I do give them credit for that. Yeah, I even have in my notes that this reminded me very much of Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Dick Tracy on the NES.
Dick Tracy's also...
Yeah.
Yep, it's like a good example. Yep. Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, there's a good game here. It just unfortunately doesn't put its best foot forward, and unfortunately that is why the game suffers.
Yes. So... yeah, it's unfortunate, but I'm curious to see how the other versions of the game compare, because I said there are significant differences between this version and the other version. I should check out the NES version at some point and see how it differs, because I'm curious to see if that one plays any better. Yeah,
so I've played the Game Boy version, and it's more platforming and whatnot. Yeah. And yeah, I think it plays better because of that platforming, but it's also like, how many platforming games were out at the time, especially on licensed properties?
Yep, a lot.
Yeah. So it's very familiar territory, and you get kind of bored real quick. It's unfortunate, but I appreciate that they tried to do something different here. I just think it was poorly executed.
Yes. No, I agree with you 100%. So unfortunate, but. Anyway, moving on. We have another. Original game. Probably you're probably not gonna be surprised by this. I probably should warn everybody to the podcast. Not only do we have a lot of licensed property games on this list, we also have a lot of fighting games on this list, because fighting games because fighting games exploded in the early 90s. Thanks for Street Fighter 2 Mortal Kombat. Everybody and their uncle was making one. So in some cases, we even have like the two of them combined, which we are gonna we have one of those games later on this list too, unfortunately. But and our next game, Doomsday Warriors, another like just another 2D action fighting game. But it was known in Japan as Taikatsu Brass Numbers, which means confrontation brass numbers, which I think is like a better sounding name, and is also the only game, I believe it's the only game on this list that you could actually play like on the. That you can play like on the Switch. For some reason, they added this game. The Super NES library on the Switch back in 2021. Probably just a pad the library because they got the rights for cheap. Yep. So because again, it's just a very average, forgettable fighting game of this time period. It's like how many of these things we have to play, but it just. I really don't know what else to say about this game, Joe, except the fact it's boring. But it's just like the box cover is cool. To say something positive about this. I mean, like, it plays well enough at least, but it just is no fun. Everything this game does, other games have done better, and just like and it's 2 out of 5 stars. I saw the average review for this game. I think hit the nail pretty soundly on the head for this one.
Yeah, so I will start this with the positives. The backgrounds for the levels look great. I think the sprite details are also fantastic here. That's where the positives end, unfortunately. It's a fighting game. You get a whole whopping 6 characters to choose from. If you can figure out the special moves, you can last a few seconds. If not, then guess what? Like, your enemy's gonna basically be right on top of you, doing special moves, attacking you, everything. And the one thing that probably could have made this possibly tolerable would be some good music, and this game lacks it big time. I don't think the music here is great at all. So any sort of enjoyment that you could have gotten by pushing through in this game is not going to happen. Go watch a YouTube video, because like I said, the levels look really good. I think the sprite detail's great. But yeah, one, there's better games that you can play on the Super NES, so that's why I most certainly wouldn't recommend this. 2, there are better games on the Switch that you can play that are better than this. So please, just look up a YouTube video, watch like someone's 2-minute review of this game, because I can't imagine that anybody put effort into reviewing this game fully and putting out like a 10-minute, 20-minute video for it.
Yeah, like I said before, it's like the only reason I can fathom that this game's on the Switch is because Nintendo's looking for cheap games to fill up the library.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah.
Because there's no other logical reason why this would be here. Except for that. But so. Oh well, but we're so unfortunately, whenever something gets popular, you're gonna get like 100 copycats trying to copy out that formula, and a lot of them, most of them are gonna be garbage. We're sort of seeing that today. So, but anyway, so moving on. This next one is at least somewhat interesting to talk about. At least, it's not like licensed property game, but at least one actually has a bit of a history. Family Dog's our next game, which you probably have not heard of, especially if you're younger. Family Dog was an anime sitcom that actually came out in 2 parts. There was 1987 short, which kicked off the whole idea behind it. For an episode of Amazing Stories, which had a very good cast doing the voices for it, and the short did well enough that the network wanted to make an actual show out of it. But it was delayed for years. Suffered from development hell, that kind of stuff. When it finally came out, when the show finally came out in 1993, despite again having good cast doing voices for it and getting heavily promoted. I still remember seeing the ads for it as a kid. Because I was in high school when this came out. It bombed bad. They only released 10 episodes of it, which kind of gives you an idea how bad it was. But I never actually watched this because I heard you've heard how bad it is. I saw clips of it on YouTube, and yeah, it's not great. But you can get a home release of this if you want it badly enough, which is like okay. But did you ever watch this, Joe? Like either back when it was new or like more recently?
Yeah, so I was actually just sitting here thinking, oh my god, because I have this on my Plex server. I actually didn't absolutely hate the cartoon. I didn't see it when it first came out, but I came to it later. And it's kind of in the vein of Greg the Bunny, where it's lowbrow humor, and it's you're either gonna like it or you're not. It's literally one of those things. You'll never be in the middle. So yeah, I mean, this is a guilty pleasure. You know what I mean? This is like Johnny Bravo. That's where I put this. Johnny Bravo wasn't great, but it's that type of quick-witted humor of him being a douche that just sometimes it's funny. And Family Dog has that moment. It's there are moments where the show is funny, but as a whole, yeah, I completely understand why it failed.
But yeah, so but obviously they felt they thought the show was going to be the show was going to be a bigger success than it was, because the video game came out. The video game came out based upon the show around the same time. That was canceled, but the video game, again, typical licensed platformer slop. It kind of follows the premise of the show. You're playing as a dog. You have to go to various locations. You have to do good locations, defeat stereotypical obstacles. You end your typical enemies like a dog catcher or a cat. Ho hum. It's a lot of people consider this to be on the list of 10 worst Super NES games, and oof, I have to agree with that. It's like I'm hard pressed to say anything good about this. The graphics, I guess, the best thing I can say about it, they do match it does look like the the graphics do look like do look like a TV show at least, but beyond that, I'm hard pressed to say anything positive about this. This is it's very deserving of being a worst game on the system title for sure.
All right, so I will start off with, I think the animation looks great. It does look great, yes. The sprites look great. This literally looks like the cartoon, so good on them for that. I even thought the music was okay here. But honestly, there you go. There could have been a good game here, but it's on this list, so guess what? It's not. That being said, here's my biggest issue with this game. All you have to do is hold X, which gives you a sprint, and just run to the right. It doesn't matter about collectibles. It doesn't matter about enemy placement. None of that. You can literally just run through the entire level by holding X and sprinting all the way to the right. And I think that is the biggest con I have for this game, because there is the bones for a good game here. The problem is that the game doesn't force you or implement the other aspects of the game to complete. So, the first level, you're running through a living room. There are platforms. You can jump up. You can collect bones. You can collect different things. And there is a game here, but you don't need to do that. You can literally hold X, run all the way to the door, boom, transition. We're in the second level. Now your abusive owner is chasing after you. And again, you are holding X and running. There are obstacles that you're supposed to jump over. Honestly, if you're holding X and just holding to the right, you can actually hit those obstacles and your owner's still not going to catch up to you. It's these things that unfortunately drag this game down. I really, really think that there is a fantastic game hidden here. They just did not execute correctly, and I don't know. It could have been the fact that, maybe they weren't given enough time to flesh it out completely. I don't know. But for me, the fun factor got taken out the minute I, spent almost 10 minutes jumping around on platforms, collecting things and everything else. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to jump on YouTube real quick and see what's beyond here and whatnot. And then I literally watched a guy do exactly what I just said. He held X and ran to the right and just avoided everything, and the level ended. And I was like, oh, when I first saw the dog bones, I was thinking, oh, I got to collect the dog bones. You're going to have to collect X amount of dog bones to be able to proceed, all that. No, there is no game here. It is literally a beautiful, I'll admit, beautiful animation game, but calling it a game is kind of hard as well, because like I said, all you can do is sprint to the right and you can beat it. It's really that simple. This is very unfortunate, because I think this could have maybe not been in like a 5-star game, obviously, but I think this could have been 3.5, 4 stars if there was some effort there. It's just,
sure.
This one just completely falls flat because of execution, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah. Yep. I agree with that. It sounds like you definitely had more fun with this game than I did.
Yeah.
But it's just like there's so many platformers in the system. It's like the bar for unfortunately the bar for entry is so good. It's like, why would you waste time playing this? There's like 100 other platformers in the system which are better than this one is. But but yeah, graphically I agree. Graphically, Flight does look great. So, but anyway, moving on. Here we have an interesting game. The only arcade port to be found on this list. On this list, Gun Force. Which Japan was released as its full title, Gun Force Battle 5 Engulf Terror Island, because of course. It was made by REM in 1991. REM was the big arcade company in the time period. Came out for Super NES. Its only home port the following year. This is the game. The game did very well in the arcades. Well enough to have a sequel come out later on. That sequel has only been released, by the way, in the REM Arcade Hits collection. Compared to the first game, it never got a home port until then. This is the game I was looking to before that I'm like, I actually had a lot of fun with this game. I like this game a lot. I don't believe it. This is one game I feel like does not. One game I feel like does not belong on this list. Is it original? No. This is a very typical run-of-the-mill sideways scrolling shooting game in the vein of like Contra like a Metal Slug. But if you like those games, you like this one too. Graphically it looks good. Music-wise, it's not bad. You get to do motorcycles like well too. I checked out the arcade version on YouTube. This is like a very good port. It just seems like I'm actually surprised this game's on the list, because it's like if you enjoy games of this type, this is a perfectly serviceable game. Is this good as Contra and Metal Slug? No, but if you enjoy those games that that want more of it, there's definitely is up there. I kind of compare this like the Capcom game. Mercs. Have you ever played that one, Joe?
Yep.
But the perspective is different from Mercs for this one. But again, both those games like very typical average shooters of the time period, and and the review scores. The review scores of this game are all like pretty average. It's like I really don't see any bad scores here. It's like the worst score I see is actually Famitsu, the famous Japanese video game magazine, which gives 18 out of 40. Yeah. Which is below average, yeah, but it's not horrible. So, I'd probably give this game like 3.5 stars personally, myself. Maybe it's because maybe my affection for this game, like partly because I love this genre. I really have a lot of affection and nostalgia for action shooters games like this. But this is one game on this list that I really did not feel like deserved to be called a bad game.
Yeah, so this is definitely the closest one that comes to being a decent game. Just keep in mind, this is a poor, and I do mean poor, Contra clone. The gun sounds are pretty good. I thought the music was lacking. And gameplay is your typical walk to the right and shoot.
Yeah.
But it's not that simple because of the fact that constantly enemies are running up behind you. Your enemies can also shoot in all 8 directions like you can. And as much as you'd like to sit there and just, sit there and angle your shot, you can't because soldiers will start running up behind you and you will die. I also think this game suffers mainly because of the fact that you get the infamous enemies can shoot you from off screen, which is always super annoying. Which adds a level of this game to where it's kind of like Castlevania, where and even Contra, where you have to kind of remember enemy placement and the way that they react so that you can proceed forward in the game through trial and error. I didn't absolutely hate this game, but I understand why there is a audience that may not enjoy this game.
Exactly. Yeah. I agree with you, but I agree with you mostly. This game is not great. It is like a poor man's Contra clone, but it's like for what it does, it's fine. If you enjoy games this type, and want more action, then this is fine. The arcade version of the game does look better than the Super NES port for sure, but that's part of the course for ports from arcade games on this time period. So. I actually, this is actually a game. This is actually a game I might. This is actually a game I might. That I might go back to and finish at some point because I actually, like I said, I enjoy games this type. So, moving on, we have another. We've had the licensed property game. I was too old to watch this cartoon. I'm curious to know if you saw any of it, Joe. James Bond Jr. I heard of it, of course. It seems to be pretty well thought of by people nowadays. How much of that's nostalgia, I can't tell you, but I did not watch this when it was on. It aired from 1991, 65 episodes.
Yep.
For a single season.
Yep.
Man, that's a packed season. Obviously based upon the James Bond franchise. So did you ever watch this, Joe?
Yeah, I did watch this. And at the time, I wasn't a huge fan of it. The animation style very much looks like what you'd get with Captain Planet and the Planeteers, which is a horrible animation style, but it was, I don't know, I was always big into Transformers, He-Man, Mask, and those have that cartoon appeal, and I just felt like they tried to make James Bond Jr. Too realistic, really what it comes down to. Looking back now and watching that show, there's definitely some good stuff there. And so, yes, the nostalgia can definitely be played up for this franchise. But, you want to talk about the game?
There wasn't a lot of licensed property. Well, actually, let me rephrase that. There actually was. As far as toys and games that you might expect, there wasn't very a lot based on this. Books. You had a number of books made based upon this.
Yeah.
That's that's on a different. That's on a different a different level than toys or games. Did you know there's also a Marvel's Comics spinoff based upon this?
Yep. Yeah.
So 12 issues. So. but there was a board game made apparently, based upon this, and it was like 3 diecast toy vehicles produced. The sports car, the Warfield van, like the Scum helicopter. So I imagine those are like pretty probably rare-ish and kind of worth money these days. So. And there's also associated. There's also associated toy line manufactured by Hasbro. So I shouldn't say there wasn't anything out there. There was some stuff, anyway, the game. As far as the video game itself goes, THQ published it the following year, like 1992. What can I say about it? It's just another typical licensed cartoon action platformer game where you're playing James Bond Jr. going around shooting guys. I mean, again, graphically it looks good. Again, I thought they mirrored the look of the cartoon like very well. But it's like, again, it's like. These developers, they're forced to make a game because of, like, again, limited time, tight budgets, whatever. It's like, there's nothing, to me at least, there wasn't really anything inspired or exciting here. Just like more cookie cutter, take a genre that's popular at the time, slap a license onto it and release it kind of game. So, I can see, so I think 2 stars, maybe a little harsh. I'd give 2.5. Because it really wasn't egregious. I don't thought anything it did, but it's like, but again, it's like meh quality as far as being like a fun game to play.
Yeah, I mean, in the little blurb I wrote for this game, when the control scheme is considered a positive. You're in for quite a treat. So I did like the big sprites that they have for this game. The issue is they're not very detailed and kind of muddy, which is unfortunate. Like I said, the controls I thought were fantastic. A is the punch, B is the jump. So I love that when that B button is the jump button, just because you can easily move your thumb left or right to be able to do other moves. Y throws a grenade, X kicks. So you only get one enemy to start off in this game, which should already tell you, there's some cracks here. I punched the guy. And I swear I missed him. Like, first punch literally looks like it went right through him, didn't even affect him. So that was the first thing for me. I was like, okay, poor hit detection, great. So then, I was able to get through that part. And then we switched to like a side-scrolling shooter where you're in a helicopter. Man, talk about trial and error. I think I died a lot because like you can go through and you can shoot all the other helicopters that are in the air, you can bomb stuff on the ground, but the angle is weird, so like sometimes you end up dropping the bombs either too early or too late, and then they're shooting straight up at you, and of course they don't miss. The only other positive I can say about this game is that there's a password system, so you can easily see all the game. But yeah, this is a poor attempt of cashing in on a licensed property, and I think I would have thought at least that this coming out after the series had already been canceled, that maybe they would have just pulled the plug. But I figure by the time that they were getting close to probably releasing this and the show was canceled, they probably had sunk so much money into it that at that point they were just like, get it out there and we'll make whatever money we can.
Yeah, it is kind of strange, but strange like how they actually show itself when, because like 65 episodes for one season is a lot. So, it's like maybe they meant to kind of spread it out a bit more, or like maybe they thought the show would be show being like more successful than it was.
Yeah.
But anyway, because everything came out after the show had already aired. So it is very curious. I definitely share the same frustrations that you did, Joe. Just like I kind of figured that maybe I let you talk about them for a change instead. But I mean, it's playable at least. I mean, like I have played worse.
Absolutely.
But again, I mean, unless you're like a fan unless you're a fan of obscure platformers. Or the cartoon. This is probably like best avoid it. So
it's not baby's kids, but just know that you have to have some patience to get through the game.
Yes, for sure. So now we're on to another licensed property game. Again, why am I surprised? This is based upon a movie. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which came out in 1994. I have not seen this. I have not seen this movie. But how about you, Joe?
Believe it or not, I have not, and I'm a big fan of the Universal monster movies. But
the movie only got mixed reviews when it came out. So but it's like which what I heard about too from people who saw it. It's like it's okay, but it does fall. When I understand it, the movie does follow the plot of the book, the original book, pretty well.
Yes.
And in return, the game follows the plot of the movie, like very close as well too. So, again, this is another case where the game was developed judged for the movie to come out about the same time period. Where again they probably thought the movie would be a better success than it was. Two very different versions of this game, however, were created. The Super NES version of the game is more of a. They're both still action / platformer games, but the Super NES version has more what I'd call graphical adventure elements to it. If that makes sense. The other version of the game was developed. The other version of the game was developed for Sega CD, and that version of the game is more straight up action game with cutscenes from the movie spliced in there because it was CD technology, of course. But so I looked at both online. I do think the Super NES version of the game is better, but that's not saying much because this game reminds me. This game is ambitious, at least. It reminds me a lot like Prince of Persia. I'm not sure if you had the same feeling, Joe, but it's like you spend a lot of time playing Frankenstein's monster, just trying to basically just go around this town, trying to locate certain objects. That's where the adventure aspect of it that comes into. Either avoiding or defeating enemies. And just trying to survive and get your revenge. But the frustrations with this game are many. The game's confusing. It's slow paced. You only have wooden stick to ward off your enemies with, which is because you're a monster. You're supposed to be strong. Like you should be able to punch or kick them at least, but. It's very easy. It's very easy to get ganged up on and take a lot of damage, especially later on in the game. Yep. So when your enemies have have muskets shoot at you with. The puzzles in this game are very simple and yet somehow obtuse at the same time. If that makes sense. This definitely. This actually. Not everybody hated this game. There were a couple places like All Game that gave this game a passing rating. But most publications of the time period gave this game a very bad rating, and I think it deserves those ratings. Graphically, I thought the game mirrored graphically, I thought the game was fine. It did mirror the look of the movie pretty well from what I saw on YouTube and whatnot. But it's just again, it's no fun to play. It's it's too slow, too frustrating, too hard to too easy to take damage. Just there's numerous problems holding this back, which is unfortunate because I think this really could have been a very solid game if just some of the things they still could have. maybe this is just a game which really shouldn't have tried to be adapted based on the movie. It's like, because not every at least people have learned lesson these days. Not everything needs to be turned to a game, but it's like, I understand what they're trying to do here, but it's like, I think this is the property best left alone as a movie and not trying to make a game out of it.
Yeah. So, like most licensed games, this feels like a cash grab. And on top of that, it's for a rated R movie, because the kids were totally seeing that movie and then wanting to play the game. So you're automatically eliminating 80% of your audience. So from there, like, I already knew, like, this game is obviously, it's not going to sell well. It's probably not going to be reviewed well because of the fact of the low sales numbers and everything else. That being said, man, the enemy's range is better than yours. You are guaranteed to take damage every single time there is combat. There is no way to avoid it.
Yep.
There are, just in the first level, there are different doors that you are able to go in. Some of the doors end up being shortcuts and help you progress through the level. Others do absolutely nothing. They're not marked, and it feels totally random. You have a stick, and you have a, like, magic blue orb that you can use for an attack as well. But you can't shoot the blue orb while you're crouched. So your staff is the weapon that you're using the most, because you're going to want to crouch to kind of avoid being hit by the enemies. It's a whole thing. But yeah, that's why I opened up with it's a cash grab, because that is what this is. This is a game that was pumped out to make money on a movie that they thought was going to be big and popular. And like I said, it's a rated R movie. You're already removing 80% of your audience. Like, how did you think this was going to be a success and that you could just pump this out like other games of that era? Like, I don't know. Yeah, this one absolutely deserves the rating I think that it gets. I agree. There is a game here, and I think there's a good game here. It could have been a solid Castlevania clone, and I think that this game could have been 1,000 times better. But yeah, like, it just feels really random, and your enemies having the upper hand the entire time just didn't sit well with me.
Yeah, definitely. Yep, for sure. It kind of reminded me the gameplay reminds me a lot in some ways of another, like, notoriously bad game, the NES game Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde,
Yes.
which also suffers from many of the same problems. But the movie actually made a profit in the box office, so it's like it wasn't it wasn't totally a failure, but I do agree with you that, this being R-rated movie for a system where a lot of kids were still playing, it definitely hurt sales. We'll get into that issue again with another game back on this list, but pretty good summarizing the points there that I didn't touch on as much, like, my thoughts. So I think between the two of us, we covered this game, like, pretty well. So. Would I put it on a list of top 10 worst games? No, but it was definitely, by no means like it's a great game either. So, however, now moving on to a game that I might put on that top 10 worst game list. Another licensed property game. Again, based upon. Based upon a show I've never seen, Rocko's Modern Life, which was an animated show that aired from 1996 on Nickelodeon. Did you ever see this, Joe?
Yeah, Rocko's Modern Life is fantastic. I thoroughly enjoyed this show. And I was actually looking forward to playing this game.
Oh, I'm sorry for you.
Yeah, I was sorry too.
So the full name of this game is Rocko's Modern Life: Spunky's Dangerous Day. It's a puzzle platformer game, which came out in 1994 during the high point of the show. I understand why they made it a puzzle platformer game, because they wanted to differentiate the game from all the run-of-the-mill platformers which are the system at the time period. But because the puzzle elements being added, I think this game is best described as being like similar to Lemmings, similar to Mario and Wario, similar to the Lost Vikings, where you basically are just trying to do various objectives and solve puzzles that proceed. So again, I will give kudos to the graphics. This does look like it comes straight out of the show. Very large, detailed, bright, colorful graphics look great. The music's not bad either. I do appreciate the fact that this game does give you a difficulty setting between easy and hard, because I struggle with easy. I can't even imagine hard, but on easy you have the ability. You also have the ability to pan through the entire stage when the game's paused, which you can't do in hard mode. Which again, it's like, why would you artificially increase difficulty like that? So, and there are also passwords, which thank God for that. So, the game actually got pretty mixed reviews when it came out. Some people actually thought that some people magazines actually like the game a lot. So there's definitely I think it's the most polarizing of the games we have on the list, where it's like some people love it, some people hate it, because these reviews are all over the place. And I've also seen people on YouTube who are very who play this game back as a kid. They had very nostalgic feelings about this, but nobody beat the game back then, which I also think is telling for how difficult this game gets. So take that with a take that you'll have a grain of salt. Again, solid idea. Looks and plays like an episode of the cartoon. However, it doesn't control very well. It's not it doesn't handle very well. It's too hard in most areas. Like on easy mode, it's just not that much fun. So again, it's like, I understand what the developers were trying to do here to separate the game from your typical run-of-the-mill licensed platformer slop, but I think maybe they got too ambitious with the limited budget and time that they had to work on this game, and just simply introduced a whole artificial bunch of problems. Again, kids playing this game as the target audience. But again, going back to what I saw on YouTube, a lot of kids play this game back then and liked it, but nobody ever beat it. Yeah. So, but again, I think it's very telling. But anyway, Joe, you said you were very disappointed by this.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So I agree with you. The graphics are great. Everything is colorful. Sprites are vibrant. I mean, it's really like you're playing the show. They did a good job as far as visually getting it together. Fortunately, if you all know me well enough, you will know, if you know anything about this game, why I do not like this game. And I even put in my notes, it'll never be for me, and it's a hard pass. You essentially have 16 levels of escort missions. If there's one thing I despise in the video game sphere, is escort missions. Not too long after I started this podcast, we did a game where you had to basically teach your character to do different things, and then they kind of do their own thing. It was essentially an escort mission game.
The Japanese, really gorgeous anime game. Yes. I don't remember the name of it. I don't remember the name of it right now, but yes, I know the game.
I mean, if you guys have been with us that long, you know I despise games like this. So yes, I was terribly disappointed because I was expecting, okay, Nickelodeon property, obviously game design for kids. I had played, the Ren and Stimpy games on here. I expected it's going to be a licensed pile of crap because that's how it usually is. But, there's going to be some sort of game here that can be enjoyed. And the minute it turned on and I found out it's escort missions, I almost turned it directly off because I already knew I was not going to enjoy it. And I didn't want to be that negative without playing it. I did end up playing, obviously, some of it just to get a feel for it. And yeah, I mean, my feelings stayed the same. I despise escort missions, and this is an entire game of escort missions. The best comparison I can think of, other than that Japanese game that we played, is, what is it, Pac-Man 2?
New Adventures.
Yes, where you have to do certain things in a level so that he can progress, and it's essentially escort missions. I loved Earthworm Jim until you get to the point where you have to get that dog through the space level without him raging out. Escort missions are not my thing. They've never been my thing. They will never be my thing. So unfortunately, as beautiful as Rocko's Modern Life is, and I would love to sit there and say I love this game, I despise this game with every molecule in my body.
Well, I didn't hate as much as you did, but I can understand the hate. So
but you like escort missions, so it's okay.
I don't really love them either, but I can tolerate them at least. But because there are some very good games with escort missions which are fine, like the Metal Gear Solid games, for example. When it happens to those, it's fine. I don't love it, but for a few minutes, I'm going to put up with it. So, this whole game based on that property, that premise, I get it. Believe me, I get it. So, we're almost done. 2 more games to go. Next one here is another not a licensed property. At least if it is, I'm not aware of it. The game called Ultimate Fighter, which is another fighting game, which is so typical of games like this type time period. So in Japan, it was called Hiryu no Ken S Golden Fighter. And the game was popular enough in Japan, at least there was an updated version of this game later on that year in 1992 called a hyper version. Part of the problem is, however, that the game did not come out in North America until 2 years later in June of '94. And what would have been probably a good game in 1992, but 1994 was way overshadowed by everything else that was on the market, the time period. So, as a result, there's nothing really here to recommend it. It's just a very typical, again, average fighting game of the time period. So, why the delay releasing it for 2 years in the States, I don't know, but I think those 2 delays really cost it, because it did come out rapidly. Before the market got saturated here in the States, maybe the game could have done pretty well. But by December '94, nobody was going to play a very average cookie cutter ho hum fighting game on the system for sure. So, I'm sorry, I just don't have too much else to say about this game.
Well, this is definitely one we're going to differ on. This game's ambitious. It is
ambitious. I know that much.
Yes. This is a side-scrolling beat 'em up. Until it's not. Each level concludes with the game switching to a one-on-one fighting game. Thankfully, the control swaps to represent the genre in which you're in. Thank God. So when you're in fighting mode, jump is now the up button. It's not a face button, which is nice. You fill a KO meter, and with multiple attacks landing, you can enter a rush mode, which makes you do devastating attacks with the Y button. Once the KO meter is full, On the side-scrolling side of things, you can shoot like Hadoukens and do like reuse hurricane spin kicks, which is pretty cool. Also, depending on what mode you chose in the game, the one-on-one fights can actually be a turn-based RPG style where you choose your move and then it reacts to it and so on, which is pretty cool. I really like that. There's even a versus mode here that lets you do one-on-one fights. The biggest issue with this game is definitely not the sound or graphics. I think those are pretty good here. But it's mediocre. It's forgettable. And the frame rate. There's a reason why they released a hyper version over in Japan. The frame rate is horrible in this game, and really,
one of the things that I really disliked. Yep.
Yeah, it's what kills this game, in my opinion. If the frame rate was up to par, and I did play the hyper version, which does play a lot better. This could have been a great game. It wouldn't even be on the list, in all honesty. If I ended up, playing this and it was great and whatnot, I would have messaged Greg and been like, nope, this is getting taken off the list. We're going to do its own episode. But yeah, the frame rate dropped it so bad that I couldn't. And it's too bad because, like I said, they were doing something unique here. I love the fact that it's a side-scrolling beat-em-up, but then when you get to the boss, it's a one-on-one fight. And then like the fact that you have to fill up a KO meter to be able to do like devastating attacks. Like there's so much here to love, especially if you're a beat 'em up fan, which I've always been a beat 'em up fan. So that's my bread and butter. So yeah, I think, if you can play the hyper, version, play that. Also, almost 100% sure I saw, hacks that are out there that actually speed up the game for you. So yeah. So there are more modern ways to be able to play this and enjoy it. So I definitely encourage you to check it out because I think there's a good game here. But yeah, what suffered at the time was the frame rate and them clearly not either A, optimizing, or B, not knowing how to program for the Super Nintendo. It's one of those two. And it's unfortunate because, like I said, I think if it had been just a little bit better with the frame rate, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. It would be probably the first, game that we covered for the new year.
Yeah, no, I think your opinion on this is very fair, Joe. It's like, it's like I said before, like a Gun Force. I gave that a higher mark because I'm a fan of the genre. You're more of a fan of the genre than I am, but I do agree the game's ambitious. It just didn't. Just didn't mesh together for me very well.
That's
but,
fair.
But yeah, if you enjoy that kind of game, like Joe said, I think it's worth checking out. I do want to make a correction to something I said before though. This is not part of a licensed property per se, but it is part of a franchise. This is part of the Hurry Ken franchise, which is which was a very popular series of fighting video games from Japan from 1985 to 2000. The few games that were released in the West were translated to a Fist of Flying Dragon. Because that's what the name means. It means Japan. So there were a few games in this franchise that came out in the West, but it was mostly Japanese franchise. But anyway, speaking of Japanese franchises, that's a good segue to our last game on this list, Ultraman Toward the Future, which I've never seen Ultraman, but I know from reputation it's kind of like a poor Godzilla meets a Mighty Morphin Power Rangers crossover, a spin-off thing, where it's like you have where basically you have like a superhero like guy who's going around Tokyo like fighting monsters, basically. So, have you ever seen this like in any kind of form, Joe?
Oh yeah, I love Ultraman.
Yeah.
This one was very disappointing.
Yes, it is. This game has a reputation for being a bad game for a long time, and I think it deserves it. So this was an early Super NES game, the earliest Super NES game on our list, actually, because it came out virtually after the game was released, and boy, does it show, because it just not. It suffers many of the same issues that a lot of early Super NES games suffer from: slow frame rate, lag. That kind of stuff. So, curiously enough, the Japanese version of this game is based upon the 1966 series, whereas the North American version of the game is based upon the more contemporary Ultraman Toward the Future series. So, I guess so like to make changes accordingly so that the audience would be able to associate it with whatever they'd seen Ultraman in of that time period. Which I like that. So. Basically, just like a very, generic superhero beat 'em up kind of style game. Another, think of the single player fighting game. It clearly supposed to be inspired by Godzilla and many of Power Rangers, but nowhere near as fun to play as those games. It's just like the game's slow, it's sluggish, the graphics are okay, they're not they're not great. Single player only, which doesn't help things one bit. I think it was a 2-player mode. It definitely would have added some value to it at least. But it's like one of the reviewers of this game commented that quote, the action here is so stiff. You have to expect those three show with those three show what's from Mystery Science Theater 3000 pop up the corner of the screen. That's 9 comments, which I think is a pretty describes this game pretty well. I thought, but. Anyway, I'm sorry this game did not live up to your expectations, Joe.
No, that seems to be a common thread with these games. Ultraman has never been treated well with what he's gotten over here in the States.
True. Yeah, I agree with that.
There are so many good Ultraman games that are stuck in Japan that makes me shake my head. Like, why did you not release these games over here in the West? But, you released these.
Early in system lifestyle.
Right.
Yep. They wanted the game to fill it. Yeah, so exactly.
So great looking sprites. They're big. They're detailed. That's pretty much where it ends. Like Greg said, this is an early SNES game, and it shows. It's 9 levels of punching and kicking, which, by the way, the fight doesn't end until you fill up a meter that says, finish, because you got to pad out your crappy game somehow. It's tedious. Honestly, it's not worth it. There's no fun value here, in my opinion, which, as I said in my notes, is bad because I like Ultraman. Like, you know what I mean? And the game captures him and his rogues gallery very well. And like I said, most of the good titles, unfortunately, stayed in Japan. Like, now we know of these games and, we can play them and whatever. But, like, the fact that, Ultraman was never really given his due here, I guess makes sense because, it would have been secondhand exposure anyways for us. If Ultraman did air on TV, it was probably on a cable station that most people did not have access to. And I think they tried a show on Fox maybe, but by then, Power Rangers was out, so it was seen as like second rate, but Ultraman is technically the original Power Ranger. It's just a dude who, uses these alien technology to be able to, grow and be able to attack these kaijus and save Tokyo. So, I mean, there's potential there. Obviously, that potential was filled in other games. This just Man, I can't even suggest looking up a video on YouTube. That's how bad this game is. I think out of everything we covered, this is probably the most disappointing just because of the fact that I know there's good Ultraman games out there. It's not like this is a one and done licensed property, like Rocco's Modern Life or whatever, like Bebe's Kids, Cool World. Like, yeah. Those are one-offs. Like, we're never going to see another game based on those. I don't expect there to be another game. You know what I mean? Like, there was that one attempt. But here, it's Ultraman. Like, yes, this is like one of, I think, 2 games that came out for the SNES. I think we got 2 games here. But there was literally, I think, like 12 different games that were released in Japan that were never brought over here. So, yeah, it's, I don't know. I'm glad that companies are more open-minded now to, what our experiences are versus what they think we should be experiencing.
Yeah. I mean, have we mentioned how insanely difficult this game is? Considering the market was probably aimed toward kids, they made this game like hard as it is. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Like I said, like the fact that you have to fill up a meter to finish the match is ridiculous in itself. But yeah, and that's what pads the difficulty and makes this as bad as it is. And I really think part of that might be because, they were always like, well, let's make the game more difficult because people are going to rent it, beat it in a weekend, not buy our game. I understand that. But yeah, this is just, I don't know. If that's what they did here, it's unfortunate. But from what I understand, the Super Famicom version of this game isn't much better. So,
yeah. The Ultraman Toward the Future TV show, by the way, did air in the U.S. in syndication of 1992. So, and it's, it's one of the few Ultraman shows that actually have an air in the West. So there have been at least like some productions of Ultraman that have been aimed toward international markets and markets. So that's kind of interesting. But because like kaiju until recently kaiju stuff has really always been like more niche over here. I'd say until like fairly recently probably. But anyway, yeah. So. That's right. So yeah, top 10 worst games in the system. I think so. Yep, I think it definitely belongs on there, for sure. So, yeah. So that's it. That's it. That's 12 games. So it was fun covering this with you for sure, Joe. I think most of these games lived up to their. So I thought most of these games lived up to their billing. We might disagree as to how objectively "quote unquote" bad they actually are, but a lot of these games are either like bottom tier or very close to being bottom tier games. I think for sure. So, like I said before, the only one I really disagree with as far as placing like Gunforce and something like something you really disagreed with, Ultimate Fighter as far as well too.
Yeah.
So, But anyway, yeah. So so like I teased before, there are plenty of other bad games that we can cover. I'm sure we will bring up this concept again in the future episode. So because that was a very efficient way of knocking out 12 games. But so. Thank you. Like when we do this, Flavor, sure, Joe.
Yeah.
But next time on the podcast, we'll be covering a game that recently just got added to this the Super NES lineup on Switch. Speaking about that, that I never played before. Joe apparently has. He said he likes it, so we're gonna check it out next time. A game called Super Ninja Boy, which looks like an overhead action game with some some RPG aspects to it. So tune in to us next time for that episode. If you have any questions, comments, feedback, suggestions, etc., feel free to leave my Facebook page. You can also send me an email directly to the SNES Podcast at yahoo.com. Joe, where can I reach you?
Well, you can find me on the Twitter space, X, whatever you want to call it, at JOESUX30. I also have the Radical Retro Roundup, so you can check that out. That is I don't know. It's in flux at the moment because George has some personal issues going on, and looks like he's not going to be able to record for a few months. So
Yeah, he was in the process of moving too, right?
yeah. So it's that and some health stuff. So he's tied up.
I know his husband bad for a while.
Yeah. So he's tied up, and I'm thinking I might lean on Devin, who showed up for a special episode to record some episodes of the Radical Retro Roundup. But who knows? Maybe this is the push I needed to kind of just focus on just this podcast and maybe not do Radical Retro Roundup anymore. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. But yeah, definitely check out what I got there. Not family friendly, obviously. My very public Facebook. Look, at this point, I do enough stuff to where you can Google me, and you're going to find the stuff that I'm involved in, which is something I appreciate. Or if you just Google the Radical Retro Roundup, same thing, you will literally find every site the podcast is available on. So there's also a guy out there with my name that plays guitar and does his own music. That's not me. Yeah, but anyways.
Yep, I mean, fair. Anyway, as always, we appreciate you. We appreciate you being here. Hope you enjoy a special episode, and we'll catch you again next time. Be safe, be well, everybody, and later.
Bye.
Nintendo controls 80% of the video market. But no matter how you play the game, or which game you play, things definitely have come a long way since Pac-Man.
Now you're playing with power. Deep power.